Welcome to the first episode of Quiet Please. My name is John Rathouse. I've been a golf caddy on the PGA Tour for the last 18 years. I'm excited to partner with Herd at Media now on this podcast, Quiet Please, a golf podcast. We're going to enjoy talking about the traditions of the game, but definitely have an eye towards the future, all the cool stuff that's going on in the game right now. Our first guest is Paul McGinley, one of the great Ryder Cup heroes for Team Europe, an Irishman that I had a chance to meet at the 2016 Olympics in Rio. You can now see him on Sky Sports and live for the Golf Channel. Fantastic commentating that he does. We covered a lot of ground for this episode, reminiscing about his Ryder Cup past, match play. Of course, he's right in the thick of it on all the big issues in the game of golf right now. It's a great listen. I hope you enjoy. Quiet, please. Yeah, first ever episode.
That was a perfect intro, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, we got first ever episode of Quiet Please, and I'm joined now by Paul McGinley, four-time winner on the European Tour, winning Ryder Cup captain 2014. Now, really great commentator with Sky Sports, with Live from Golf Channel. Paul, thanks for taking some time out this morning.
Thanks, John. Nice to see you again. I hope all's going well.
Yeah, it's good to see you too. I was thinking back, for our listeners, we first met at the 2016 Olympics in Rio. I was caddying for Seamus Power. We had Padraig Harrington there, Ronan, of course, and you were the captain for Team Ireland for the men and the women, and that was the first time I met you. It's hard to believe that was 6 years ago.
Yeah, I know. It was one of the greatest experiences I've had in my career. As great as the Ryder Cups have been, John, I'd put it right up there. I have this saying at home, when it touches the heart, when whatever you do touches the heart, it goes to another level. And certainly the Olympics did. Being there, being in the humility you get, being all around all these athletes, when you're coming from this wealthy, rich sport that golf is, and then you see the effort and the appreciation of these sportsmen and women coming in as part of Team Ireland, and it makes you incredibly. It's very humbling. I have to say, it's very humbling. And sometimes we lose the run of ourselves in this rich sport that we're involved in. And when you're in the Olympics, really is a great place for grounding. And that's one of the reasons why I'd love all of the golfers to absolutely make being an Olympian and playing, if they get an opportunity to play for the country, going there, because it's not just trying to win a gold medal. It's the experience of being around other athletes and the effect that it has on you and representing your country.
Yeah, for sure. It's right up there for me as well. It's incredible to hear you say that. It's just up there with the Ryder Cup for you too. And we had a blast going to all the events as well. We saw Michael Phelps, setting world records. We were sneaking in to the pool, the warm-up pool. We shouldn't have been there, but we just acted like we owned the place.
Don't give away our secrets, John. We went everywhere.
Well, it'll be interesting.
I don't think there was a spot we missed. It was amazing how we were able to get access to these places.
We certainly did.
It was great.
Yeah, and then I think the last time I saw you was then in 2019 was at Lahinch. I was caddying for Seamus there in the Irish Open. And, man, what a treat for myself to kind of go over there. My wife went as well, and we were hanging out in the town, and that golf course is simply incredible. And I know I was kind of looking up a little bit more about you, and you were the winner of the South of Ireland, which is a great golf tournament there in 1991 at Lahinch. I guess, what are your memories? Maybe not from that as much, but just you're a golf course design guy, just so people who don't know or maybe have a chance one day to go over and play Lahinch, just about how special that place is.
Yeah, it's been referred to as the St. Andrews of Ireland. It is quirky. A lot of people call it quirky. It's it's up and down hills. The goats are wandering around the golf course. You got a blind par 3 where you basically hit over the stone. The stone moves every day. It's a tiny, tiny little green. You got to try and get the club right. And so, there is a bit of quirkiness to it, but there's also some amazing holes on it as well, too. And, Mackenzie, all back those years, who did Augusta National, his hands were on it at the very start there, and he set the wheel in motion there, right on the shores of the Atlantic. There's some fantastic holes on it, but it's the atmosphere about the place. And that's why I was keen when I was hosting the Irish Open to bring it down there, was because I knew it would be very atmospheric and I knew that people would love it. It's like Lahinch town is like your favorite aunt, everybody loves going there. And the 18th hole and the golf course goes right up into the middle of the town with the bars and the restaurants all sitting around it. And I knew it would be great. I knew it would be electric, and it was.
Yeah, it was really good. And then that fifth hole you mentioned, I think it's the fifth, the Dell, I think they call it. And somebody
Yeah.
said the caddies there, like that's the number one spot for Americans to make a hole in one because they'll kind of figure out a way to sneak a ball into the hole there because nobody can see what's going on the green.
I know they had that issue a few years ago where they used to have a buddy hiding in behind the hill, and when the Americans hit it over, they wouldn't know, of course, and they get up there and the ball was in. So, of course, there was tips, $100 bills for everybody and drinks for everybody. The ball, of course, didn't go in at all. So the club twigged onto that, and they had to put a camera in there to make sure that if a hole in one was going to be, it was going to be authentic.
Seamus had an all-time up and down from the hill there one day, I remember.
Yeah.
I was watching the first episode of the new season of Ted Lasso the other night. Are you a Ted Lasso fan at all?
I loved it. Yeah, I haven't seen the new season yet, but I loved it. Yeah, absolutely. I'm a huge soccer fan, and yeah, I love that show.
Well, one of the things, and you'll find out when you watch it, and I don't know, maybe you're already aware of this, because I saw you're also a West Ham fan, that the West Ham is part of the new season. So
right, okay.
The villain Nate is now coaching at West Ham.
Okay, I look forward to seeing that. I see it's being promoted at the moment, and I'll definitely watch it. One of those things to watch on an airplane. I still haven't watched the golf one yet. I'm still watching a bit of the Netflix one. I've watched kind of 2 episodes, so I need to catch up on that. But
yes,
I got plenty flying time, so that's when I normally catch up on that.
Well, yeah, and you flew the Full Swing. I do recommend that. I watched it through once, and my favorite episode was probably the Joel Damon and his caddy Gino Benelli. That was a great one. And then Rory had a nice one at the end. But you mentioned you flied you landed in Austin, Texas last night. It's the match play this week. I mean, when this airs, we'll kind of know the winner next week, but I do want to talk to you a little bit about match play. I mentioned earlier your successful record as a Ryder Cup captain, and then I didn't realize this, but 14 teams you were on as a kind of a vice captain, a player, and 13 of the 14 times. I think that's correct. I mean, that's incredible. You guys hoisted the cup. So, I mean, match play runs in your blood.
Yeah. I was very fortunate. When you're in a team, you're as good as your teammates, and very fortunate being in an era in Europe where we had a huge amount of success, and great match players like Westwood and Garcia, the R&E, the guys have gone to live. They were great match players, and we all learned so much from them. And they were the fulcrum. They were the base of all our success, particularly when it comes to Ryder Cups. And growing up in Ireland as well, too, John, we've got a brilliant. I was late to the game at 19 years old. I was like 5 or 6 handicap. I was never going to be a pro. I came to the game late. But one of the things we have in Ireland is a great structure, an amateur structure. We've got 5 big amateur titles. We call them the majors. You got the North, South, East, and West of Ireland. And then you've got the Irish Championship as well. And they're all played on links golf courses. So the South, as you say, is played in Lahinch. The North is played up in Portrush. The East is played in County Louth and Baltray. And the West is played over in Ross's Point. 4 fantastic golf courses. But it's all match play. It's 36-hole qualifying and then straight into match play. So you're playing against these old dogs, like these old warriors, these guys who've been around the block a long time in terms of match play. And as a young guy coming through, you cut your teeth off them and you watch what they do, and you listen to them in the bar afterwards. You listen to the tricks of the trade. You listen to what you have to do. Match play is all about a sprint. It's about coming out of the blocks fast. It's been, getting 1 or 2 up and then kind of controlling the game from there, putting pressure on your opponent. So all of that stuff, that DNA stuff, I learned as an amateur in Ireland. And then when I became a pro, probably, my record was good as a pro, but my record as a match player was exceptional. And because I loved that kind of the sprint element to it, a 4-round tournaments, I found it hard like school to keep my concentration for 4 rounds. But you give me an 18-hole match, and I was able to go a lot better, and my results were certainly very, very good when I did play match play. So I loved it. I love the cut and thrust of it. I love the psychology of it, and this is one of my favorite tournaments of the year this week to cover with Sky, because I love reading the matches. I love reading the psychology of it.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you about kind of what your approach was, but you broke it down right there in great detail. I guess what is maybe your favorite, what's your go-to memory if kind of you had a match tomorrow and you needed to kind of get yourself in the right mindset? Would you kind of, if you laid your head down on your pillow at night, would there be maybe a memory that you would think about from your playing days of a specific match?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the obvious one is holding the winning putt in the Ryder Cup in 2002, at about a 12-foot putt. It's a bit like catching fish, John. The older you get, the longer the putt gets. So it was 10 feet. But it had quite a big break. It was about a cup and a half break from left to right and playing against Jim Furyk, and that was to win the Ryder Cup, and I hold it. But, I often go back to that place in my head, not for egotistical reasons, but for reasons of being in the zone. I was so in the zone at that moment in time. And in fact, in all of that game, I was in the zone, and certainly coming down the stretch and into that putt. I was so consumed with the process of holding the putt. I knew the pressure was there, and I knew what was at stake, and I knew everything that was going on. I was very aware, and you got 30, 40,000 people around the green and back up the fairway with this sense of anticipation as everything goes quiet. Of course, you have the butterflies and all the stuff going on. But also the big thing was I was in the zone, and as much as that was going into my head, it was going out because I was so consumed, as they say, in the process, which is being in the zone and executing the putt. And I saw the putt, and when I saw it, I hit it quite quick because when I get a picture of it, I want to go, and that's what I did. I got a picture of it, and honestly, I hit the most perfect putt. Even if it hadn't gone in, it was the most perfect putt, and. Feel very fortunate that at that moment in time, I was able to hit a great putt and read it right and right in the middle.
Well, golf, you're always battling out there. That's incredible insight. As a pro, playing for your livelihood, like it's a totally different level. And I've seen it up close on the other side of the bag, but it sounds like in that particular moment, there was really even no doubt that was in your head on that one.
Yeah. Again, as I say, I saw it. And when I see things, same even now, when I see a shot, I stand into it and I hit it quick. I don't hang around. I think the best players are that. Rotella wrote a lot about that as I subsequently started to learn about psychology of the game and read his books and, spend a bit of time with him. I started to realize that golf is a reactionary sport. Certainly for me, it is anyway. Standing over the ball and looking at it and thinking of 3 or 4 things and then pulling the club back never works for me. I work best when the target is alive and I can see the target. It's 1, 2, bang, go. So illuminating those targets for me was a big key. It still is a big key.
Gotcha. And you mentioned Bob Rotella there. I think Seamus started working with Dr. Rotella here in the last couple of years. I think, is Rory working with Bob Rotella a little bit now as well?
Yeah, he is. Yeah. I think he's brilliant. His track record speaks for itself in what he's done. There's no doubt Seamus and Rory have both gone to different levels since they started working with him. And it's not, it's not deep psychology lying on a couch and tell me about all your childhood stuff. It's none of that. It's all about performance stuff, getting on the golf course, seeing shots, visualizing, being reactionary. And also, not letting stuff get in your head that shouldn't get in your head.
Right.
I think he's been very instrumental last year in Rory's success. Taking all the live stuff and all the noise and the fact that Rory was front and center of everything and taking that and using it in a constructive way to use it as energy for Rory and focus for Rory. I think Rotella was a huge big part on that. And, Michael Jordan, when you talk about the shows, The Last Dance, and, one of the things he talked about was harboring grudges, I liked when somebody put it up to me or somebody gave it to me and the trash talking on the court, because that's what fired me up. That's what gave me fuel. And, everybody's got to have fuel. And when you get that fuel, it's got to be harnessed and used in a constructive way. And I really do think that Rotella had a big influence on using all the noise that Rory was coming Rory's way last year in a constructive manner for him to play as well as he did.
Man, he played so well. And then it'll be interesting to see kind of how it, comes out for him this year as we're kind of on the eve of the Masters. I'm curious, while we're on the match play in the Ryder Cup, it is a Ryder Cup year in Rome in September. I know you'll be a part of all of that. I'm curious just on Seamus real quick, a guy that's just ascended up the world rankings. He finally found a caddy that he could talk hurling with, and he's winning golf tournaments, and I'm really happy for him. I'm curious though, as somebody that's seen guys try to make the Ryder Cup team, successfully, some maybe have not, just if you can kind of talk a little bit to maybe what he's going through this year as he tries to kind of let his golf speak for itself and find his way onto that team come September.
Yeah, look, he's in pole position to make the team, John, after such a brilliant year last year. And the fact that he's got himself comfortably inside the top 50 in the world has elevated him into all of these big events where the big points are. So, it'll be hard to miss from here. Lucas got 6 picks, and even if he falls down to 6th or 7th, I still fancy him, and his world ranking remains high. I still fancy him to be one of the picks, even though he might be a rookie.
Yeah.
There's a changing of the guard going on in Europe, as you know. We've lost a lot of players, obviously, to live, and also, guys are getting older as well too. So there's a changing of the guard going on, and we're looking for guys like like Seamus and Straka as well too, Sepp Straka, you know, those guys in particular, you know, who are well inside the top 50 in the world and you know, having good success on the PGA Tour and won't be intimidated playing against PGA Tour players. We're looking at those guys hopefully to step in,
right,
in on the back. You know, we've got 6 or 7 guys that, you know, me and you could sit down here and talk, starting with Rory and Ram, and you know, going down to Fleetwood and Hovland, Fitzpatrick and Shane Lowry, and you know, you can get to 6 or 7 very quickly. Of guys that we know are going to be in it. So those 5 are going to be the interesting ones. You know, and obviously Seamus and Strack in particular are 2, and a couple of rookies. You know, Bob McIntyre won around that golf course last year. He's got a bit of flamboyance about him. He's got a little bit of arrogance about him, which is good. You know, all players need that confidence, and you know, I think he'd be a great Ryder Cup player should he make it. So we're keeping an eye on that. But you know, it's all about form. You know, one of the things that I've learned about Ryder Cups, and certainly the ones that I played in and was involved in the management, is that you can't beat form. You know, guys, we all come in and out of form, and we all come in and out of confidence, and you want to get as many guys high on confidence come the end of the year going into the Ryder Cup as possible.
Right. The U.S. was a great side last time around, I guess, at Whistling Straits. I mean, and I was kind of I was pulling for the U.S., but I was also pulling for Padraig because I like him so much. I guess that was, I mean, Europe has dominated this thing. You know, is there any bit of you, I don't think you would admit to this, but that like, as the U.S. found an edge in this thing at all going forward, or does it still always just sit with Europe because you guys have so much entrenched about the match play and your process is so good? You did mention a little bit of a changing of the guard that's going on, and I do want to talk a little bit about how the live ripple down has been. But, you know, does the U.S. have any sort of an edge now? They obviously have the Cup.
Yeah, I think I said it last year at Whistling Straits when I saw and I watch a lot of the press conferences and listen to Steve Stricker talk in particular. I think America are better, not just on the golf course. I mean, they've always been good on the golf course. We know that. Obviously, they're very, very strong now, and there's a new crew in there now, a younger crew who certainly seem to get on very well, and doesn't seem to be any flies in the ointment in there causing any problems for them. So there's lots of good talent, and they all seem to get on well. That's important. But also from the management point of view, you know, I like to study match play and you know, I study the captains as well too. And I get a lot out of what they say and their answers to interviews. And it gives me a kind of an indication as to what they're going to do, what decision making they're going to make. And, you know, leading into the Ryder Cup last year, having watched and studied Steve Stricker, I knew Europe were in trouble. You know, because I think America are better off the golf course now than they've ever been. Right. And I know that the task force was ridiculed at the start when it came along, but I think a lot of good positive things from an American point of view happened on the back of that. It's also collided with a downturn for us. You know, we weren't very good at Whistling Straits, as good as America were. We didn't play very well. Our scoring against the golf course was really, really poor. So we need to raise our standards. And I think that's what the big focus is with Luke. You know, I've been speaking to Luke quite a bit over the last few months, and, you know, he calls me up a number of times. I'm happy to give him any kind of guidance and insights that I have. And, you know, it's important that he uses sounding boards like me and other guys as well, too, to cut his teeth and formulate his ideas, because we need to raise our performance, John. And that's the reason why we lost so heavily at Whistling Straits. Even though the media out there is going to tell you, oh, this is the best ever American team. America were phenomenal. Nobody would have beaten them, I get that. They were good, and I don't want to diminish how good they were. But we need to highlight the fact that how far off the pace we were in terms of scoring against the golf course. Right. You know, we were miles off. So we need to improve our performance.
Well, you bring up 2 interesting points there, because I didn't realize that there's basically a committee of 5 guys that help to select the captain every time around, and you're on that committee, I guess. Can you just shed a little bit of light on that process?
Yeah, I was on it by default this year. Normally what we do, John, is we take the 3 most recent captains, and them along with Keith Pelly and a nominee from the players committee are the 5 who normally do it. So obviously, you know, because I've done, you know, it's been 3 Ryder Cups since I was captain, so I wasn't part of the decision. First of all, they picked Henrik Stenson, right, because my 3-year term was up. The 3 involved there were Thomas Bjorn, Darren Clark, and Padraig, on top of Keith Pelly and a couple of David Howell, who was representative of the players committee. And then what happened was Henrik obviously went to live, and we had to find a new captain. So because Thomas Bjorn, there was a bit of talk that maybe, you know, they need to recuse him away from that conversation, because there is a body of opinion to think that we may be going back to an older captain. and Thomas was obviously the standout candidate with that, having had such great success in France. So he was asked to be recused from that meeting. So they asked me to go in on a temporary basis. So that's how I, excuse me, that's how I was involved in the decision making for Luke.
Gotcha. And then the other thing that you were kind of getting at there, which I'm really fascinated by, because there's a couple things that have happened in the last few years. I mean, Liv, yes, and I do want to discuss that. But one thing that's really taken off in the last 10 years that I know was really good for the European Ryder Cup team that's just huge in golf right now is stats and using stats and analytics to kind of drive your performance. I'm just kind of interested to hear your take on kind of where that is, how that's kind of infiltrated the game of golf now, and how valuable you think it is.
Yeah, I mean, I could talk a whole lot about it, but I don't want to give away too many secrets as well, John. I was the first captain on either team to use a professional statistics team in 2014. Used a company called StrokeAverage.com. They were working with a lot of players on our team at the time. And I, got budget. When I got the job, I got budget to basically employ them for the 18 months that I was captain, to monitor and watch. And the first thing I got them to do was to, I'm a great believer in horses for courses, and I know you are too, and you're great at giving tips in the golf, and you understand it. You understand guys, and you understand how suitable they are to the golf course. You throw it in with a bit of form, and you come up with your knowledge of the players as well, and what's going on in their private lives and what's going on with the caddies and all that, and you come up with your opinions. And I'm a believer in that too. That's kind of how I do my TV work and how I garner my opinions. But one of the things that I'm a big believer in is horses for courses. So the first thing I do is look at the golf course and the suitability for certain styles of players. So that's what I got them to look for in Glen Eagles. Go away and give me the correlations in the last 10 Johnny Walkers that have been played at that golf course between the guys that have won or the guys at top 10 and what statistic category they were really strong in. And a number of things came out. Big hitting was an important one. Another one is the big long wet golf course, and it was going to be played at the end of September. The chances were the weather was going to be was not going to be great, and it was going to be cold. The ball wouldn't be flying. So so I had a real eye on players that were power players, rather than finesse players, and I felt that I really needed that. So that's where we started with that, and it moved on to being a success, and now the Americans do it, and all of our teams do it, and it's a big part of it now. But I just a cautionary tale as well too. There's a great line. I remember watching talk about press conferences. I was a vice captain of Monty in 2010 in Celtic Manor, and I was at the press conference that Corey Pavin was holding. I was hiding down the back if he couldn't see me, but I just wanted to hear what he had to say, and he made a brilliant point. Somebody asked him, Corey, what have you learned? What have you learned in your, in your 2-year journey now as captain to come to here? Has anybody given you good advice? And he said, yeah, I don't know who the football coach was. It might have been Belichick, but I'm not so sure. And he said, yes, Corey, the best advice I can give you is always remember to make the big thing the big thing. And I've taken that huge. I thought, wow, that's so insightful, and I've certainly used that. And I'm always mindful when it comes to statistics that you don't get bogged down in minutiae, and you don't get bogged down in the marginal gains, as they call it, and the 0.5% here and a 1% there and a 2% there. It's like, get the big things right, get the partnerships right in the foursomes. There's 8 matches in the foursomes. We won the foursome 7-1 in Glen Eagles, and that was the basis of our win. I worked hard on getting those pairings together. That's far more important, getting all those pairings right and the suitability to the golf course, than it is kind of, you need to use this golf ball, or you need to use this golf ball, something that's a little bit smaller. Not diminishing that in any way. You got to be aware of that, but it's important to make sure, as I say, make the big thing the big thing.
Well, I'm interested a little bit to hear your take, and I don't want to spend too much time on it, but you did mention how kind of the change in the guard and some of your guys that, you played alongside, are now on the Live Tour. You did resign recently from the DP World Tour board. You kind of said, hey, I'm in the media game a little bit more. There's some conflict of interest, which, I think that's stand-up of you. But you did, in kind of a quote, you kind of said, you noted how there's going to be challenges ahead for that tour. There's challenges for the PGA Tour right now. I guess I'm curious about what you see those challenges might be. And then do you see a world in which these two tours or 3 tours, I guess I should say, and then there are more than that, but the Live Tour and then the DP and the PGA Tour can kind of coexist and both be successful?
Yeah, I do. In a lot of ways, I'm regretful that I'm not part of the board anymore in that big decision making, because I really enjoyed it. I stand by all the big decisions that the European Tour have made, DP World Tour have made. It's a very, very bright board with some very, very clever men and women on that board. Several of them are billionaires. They come from a great world of business and structuring deals and understanding the game. And understanding membership organizations as well too. So I stand by all that we've done so far from a European perspective. I stand by Keith Pelly and Guy Kinnings, who I think are brilliant. So let me just retrace. I think your listeners will be interested in this, John. I'll just retrace a little bit because not a lot of people, they kind of gloss over it, but don't really know the ins and outs of it. And I just want to kind of give a background to that relationship between the PGA Tour and the DP World Tour now. So let's just talk about two titans, right? There's two titans going on. There's the PGA Tour, and now Saudi have come on with Live. And we're the little guy in the middle. European Tour is a little guy in the middle that's going to get crushed by one of these two. So we had to hitch our wagon on one side. So we had two choices here. We could cozy up to the Saudis and we could try to do a deal with them, or we could try to do a deal with the PGA Tour. I was always in favor of the PGA Tour of being the deal. Now, when you're representative of 500 members like we are on the board, we've got to do what's best for those memberships and secure their future. And going over and trying to do a deal with the Saudis, if we had have done that, that would have come with a lot of risk. First of all, the PGA Tour would have excommunicated us. Right. We would never have done any business with them again. That would have been fine. But okay, we would have had the Saudis around us. But what happens, now you're at the beck and call of the Saudis. And what happens after a year or two, they change strategy and go, you know what, this golf's not working out. I want to go in a different direction. I want to go into soccer. Now we're high and dry. So we were in a very, very volatile situation if we even tried to do a deal with the Saudis. So the PGA Tour was the right deal for us. The second thing I'll say is that, we've been dismissed, and some of the players you've mentioned there are very quick to say it unfairly and call us a feeder tour. And my argument with that is, when have we ever not been a feeder tour? Any player worth his salt who gets to a decent level, including me, no matter where you ever want to go the last 30 years, every single one of them, when he gets to a certain level, top 50 in the world, they bolt over to America because that's where the big money is. Right. Of course, we come back and we play the European Tour events. So, yes, we are a feeder tour. And what this deal has done is formalize that situation. We're still going to have moments in the year when we'll have our time to shine. We'll have Abu Dhabi and Dubai at the start of the year, around the Scottish Open in the middle of the year, obviously with co-sanctioned event. And then at the end of the year, post-FedEx, we're cultivating now what a new schedule will look like for the European Tour. Yeah. So we did a phenomenal deal with the PGA Tour that secures the future for all of the members for 13 years at these record prize funds that we have in Europe at the moment. And I think it's a great gateway now. We're a great way for so many players getting onto the PGA Tour and also coming back, but not dismissing the fact that we also have times to shine. And we will have kind of 10 tournaments a year where we'll be the number one tournament in the world at that time. Yeah. So I think it's a great deal, and I'm very much rode in behind the future with the PGA Tour. And I think, time will prove. I really do feel time will prove that's correct.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good move, and you laid it out well. It has been interesting to notice how those guys that, have status on the DP World Tour and are on the Live Tour have managed a way to kind of play both, and maybe that's a little bit of a model for how things can be going forward. I don't know. It's such a complicated thing. And golf's changing a lot. I was interested a little bit, your take on the modern style. Like Tiger and Rory have this new league that's going to kick off next year where they're kind of being playing in simulators, televised. I mean, golf is so much different than it was even 5 years ago. I'm just kind of your take on just kind of where it's going. Are you pleased with where it's going?
Yeah, listen, I mean, the first thing is, what a time to be a player. What a time to be a good player, John. I mean, the money is just off the scale, huge. And yeah, I mean, there's lots of new initiatives going on, the full swing going on Netflix. That's bringing more people into the game. Players being interviewed as they play the golf tournaments as well, too. That's bringing it in. I know TV are changing their production, and the addition of Shot Tracer over the years has brought it to a new level. How do we ever watch golf without Shot Tracer? Right. Is what I say now, because it's so brilliant. These elevated events, these designated events that are going to happen next year, hopefully all the players are going to turn up and play those. And we're going to have like a Premier League of events that everybody's going to tune into and the tour can promote around. And then the most important thing is, though, that there's a feeding system. There's a feeding system into these events. It's not a closed shop. And that's what it is. You're talking about 75 to 80 players in each of these events, but only 50 will be exempt from the FedEx. So that means there's 30 spots open for guys from the PGA Tour and from the DP World Tour to maybe elevate them and work their way into those events. So the future is good, and the game has been shaken to its foundations. There's no doubt about that. And but I don't think it's done us any harm, and I think it's certainly done the players a lot of favors. But I also think the game will be a better place on the back of it.
How about a quick shout out to your boy Padraig Harrington? Going to be inducted into the World Golf Hall of Fame. He's been playing awesome on the Champions Tour. Just maybe some words on just how incredible of a player and a guy he is.
Yeah, I mean, he is. He's unique. There's no doubt about that. He is unique. I've known him. We went to school together, John, before we even played golf together. We're from the same part of Dublin. We played in the same football team. We grew up, and then we started playing golf together as amateurs. I think he's about 5 years younger than me, and he's come from a long way back. And that's what I can say about Padraig more than anything. I think more than anything, when I think of Padraig, I don't think of his game. I think of his mind, and I think of his drive and his ambition and his love for the game. He absolutely loves it, and I think of how far back he came. Because when he was an amateur and played Walker Cup in 1991 in Portmarnock, to be quite honest, he wasn't a very good player. And if you'd have walked onto that range in 1991, seeing Phil Mickelson warming up and David Duval warming up, and then Padraig Harrington beside them, and you said, "Yeah, those three guys are going to be Hall of Fame," you'd have said, "You mean the other guy? You mean the Irish guy as well?"
Yeah.
He was that far off the pace. Really, he couldn't get the ball airborne. It was a low cut. So to change his golf game and have the success that he did, and the belief that he did, because he broke down the barriers. Certainly from us Europeans in terms of winning major championships. There was a flurry of Europeans winning on the back of Padraig opening the door with his win of guys around our era. And I mean, look, I think it was a foregone conclusion that he was going to be inducted, and it's obviously richly deserved. And he'll make a great speech. But the only thing about it is, they're going to have to, when they do at the Oscars, put on the music at a certain amount of time. They've talked too much. They're going to have to get some loud music
to
because
get
he
him
ain't
off
going
the
to
stage.
shut up when he starts talking.
That's funny. Well, I know we're almost at that moment. I think I want to spend a couple more times with you if you can, a couple more minutes with you if you can, and then I know you got to get on with your day. Sure. We're on the eve of the Masters. Rory and the Masters this year. Do you have a take on just kind of what we might be able to expect from him there this year?
Yeah, I think he's better prepared to win this Grand Slam than he's ever been before, John. I really do. I love the work he's done with Faxon. I love the work that he's done with Rotella. I know his putting has been a bit off this year so far, but again, he's an inspirational player that can come around quick. I think he's on the right track, certainly with the stuff that he's doing with Faxon. And I think mentally he's in a great place, as he proved last year. Take all that weight of expectation and stuff on his shoulders and deal with it. So, he came second last year. I think that will give him confidence too. If he can deal with all the noise that's gone on off the golf course for him and come with a fresh mind and come fresh, I really do think probably in the last 10 years, this is his best chance of winning it. I really do think that he's primed. I really do. But look, the competition is high, I mean, you talk about who you're going to pick to win there. God, Scotty Scheffler, look at the form he's got. Justin Thomas, he's a kind of style of player that you would think, because he works the ball so well, will win around there. His short game is so brilliant. Certainly his chipping is, and you expect him to be a contender around there. And of course, John Rahm. John Rahm's record around Augusta is absolutely phenomenal. And again, it'd be a brave man to say that he's not going to have at least one green jacket and probably a few by the end of his career. And it's only a matter of time before he starts winning them. So the competition is intense. But yeah, I like the look of Rory, but he's only one of a lot of form horses there, and horses that could win. Yeah,
I've been really impressed too with his caddy Harry. I mean, he's a big asset for Rory now. I mean, Harry's come a really long way in the caddy yard. I mean, he's a really big help for Rory out there. So I think they've got a lot of reps under their belt. I think that'll be interesting to see this year too. And you're kind of getting your voice tuned up a little bit for live from. You get to work with Brandel Chamblee. You guys are a great 1-2 punch. I mean, how much have you been enjoying doing the live from broadcast at the majors? It's been a hit.
Yeah, thanks, Johnny. I love Brandel. I love working with him, and Rich as well too, who's great at working the two of us. It's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it. you see Sky is owned by Comcast, and Golf Channel and NBC are also Comcast. So we're all under the one umbrella. So last year they moved me in a temporary role to work with Brandel, and obviously went well. And now I'm contracted for a few years to do that show with him. So it's the majors, the TPC. I do 6 events, the majors, the TPC, and a Ryder Cup I'll be doing it live from this year with Brandel and Rich. And I love it. I think he pushes me. I like to be prepared. And I know if I'm going up against him, he's going to be prepared. So as much as prep, as what keeps me motivated when I'm doing my prep. Brandel's doing more than this. I got to do more. And I'm when we know, like, obviously, the equipment debate at the moment, for example, is going to be talked about in probably the Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday of the Masters. And so I'm doing a whole load of prep, and like a lawyer, I'm building my case on what my position should be and how I'm going to present it. And then, we'll obviously be talking about Tiger, and I'll be, formulating ideas on Tiger and stuff that we're going to talk about Tiger. And, then we're going to talk about Rory in the Grand Slam. So that's what I do in terms of my prep and kind of formulating like a lawyer would, formulating my case and what my opinions would be. But if I'm going to be challenged by him, I got to have the prep to come back at him.
Right.
And that's what's really important about doing the prep. And just to give you an example of that, last year, we were talking about Dustin Johnson, I did a piece on, he's working on a swing. I'd be talking to Claude. I figured out what he was doing. Claude, they said they'd figured things out. He's starting to play better, da. And, Brandel came back basically straight away and said, Paul, I think that's rubbish. I think he's playing terrible. I don't like the way he's swinging. He's bam, bam, bam. So as he's saying this, I'm thinking, oh my God, where am I going to come back to on this? But this is the value of prep. And luckily, as he's talking, I'm thinking and I'm going into the files in my head. What else have I got on him? And luckily, I remembered that he had he was second in greens at regulation that day. So I said, Brandel, I take your point. If you think he's playing badly, the guy who's still second in greens at regulation today, he hit 15 greens out of 60. So it was like, that's the value of the prep, and that's where you gotta be able to hold your ground. And if you're gonna go against Brandel, be ready, because he's going to come at you again. Yeah,
I feel like Brandel is willing to take the other side just to take the other side a little bit. I think you're a little bit more true to what you think, but I think Brandel's tremendous, and people have to tune in this year to watch that. I mean, you're right. You mentioned the golf ball, the 13th hole's linked in this year. The golf ball debate will ensue. I saw your position on that. It's just kind of like, let's wait and see. I'm kind of wondering if we're overreacting to how much of an impact it may have, or also maybe overreacting, to, whether, golf needs that right now, so it'll be interesting to see that play out. I ask all my guests this one, and I also want to tell people they can go to your website, and you have a book, which I'm going to, email your assistant, get a copy of your book, which is called
Landscape of Success.
Landscape of Success. I want to get a copy of that. I think other people should inquire about that, but I always get people out of here with one question. You finished 18th at the Masters. I think it was 04, maybe 03. I was looking. Yeah. I caddied there once. Let's say that we're playing this year. You're playing well. You've got the lead for on Saturday evening. I've been caddying for you all week. We've been getting along great. I go out that night. I slip and fall and break my leg, so I can't go on Sunday. You can call any one person in the world to loop for you on Sunday to get you across the finish line. Who are you going to call to caddy for you?
Yeah, great question. I haven't heard that one before, John. Great question. I think at that stage your head will be all over the place, and you want stability. So I think I would probably go. Yeah. You're probably not going to get anybody at the last minute to fly over, but
no, you will. You can have anybody. You can have anybody you need. You can have anybody.
Well, my first instinct would be, stability. You need to stabilize things again. So my first instinct would be go back to a caddy who's caddied for me before, who understands me and understands my game. That would be my first instinct. And if one of them was available or around, that's seamless. He's worked with me before, and off we go. That would be my first thought. Other than that, I don't know where I would go after that. I guess a coach would be the next one in. Again, a coach who's, knows me and would have known my game. So you're looking for somebody in your team, John, who is stable. I think that's the second person that I would think in.
Gotcha.
So it's not a very sexy answer. Sorry.
No, it's good. It's good. Hey, well, I appreciate you coming on today. This has been great to catch up with you. Really enjoy watching what you're doing, and appreciate you giving us your opinions here, for 30, 40 minutes. And you're a first guest on our new podcast. So thank you.
Well, the very, very best of luck to John. I'm always there if you want me on again. And best of luck with it. You're a great guy. I love what you do. I watch all your betting stuff. And you're part of my prep, by the way.
I love it.
You're part of my prep.
Thank you so much.
You're one of my favorites.
All right, perfect.
So keep up the great work with that. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Betting is going to become bigger and bigger and bigger in this game. And I can tell you that also from, being on the board and working with the PGA Tour as well, too, that, this betting is going to, when the technology is able to catch up a little bit better, betting is going to be a big part of the experience of watching golf. I know it's not everybody's favorite thing, but the option is going to be there to do it. Certainly coming from Ireland, we bet on everything, as you know.
Yeah.
I mean, horses, greyhounds,
right.
dogs, donkeys, wherever you want to go. we have bets. So when there's going to be betting on golf, that's going to be perfect for all the Irish as well too. And I think it's going to add. You talk about growing the game and where the game's going to be. I think in 5 years' time, it will become a natural part of watching the game. And once the integrity, obviously, of all the betting stays in place, I don't see a problem. Obviously, there's a lot of issues around betting, but look, there's a lot of issues around alcohol and other kind of substance abuse as well too. And like everything, it's just got to be managed.
Gotcha. Hey, well, thank you, Paul. All the best.
All right, thanks, John. You're all the best to you too.
A Herd at Sports Network production.